Thank you for joining us on This Week in Turkey. I am Murat, Türsan. Tonight, AKP is losing ground in the latest polls. Political prosecutions continue. President Erdoğan loses his temper. More concerts are canceled by the government, and tensions between Greece and Turkey are on the rise again. We'll have former Ambassador Hakan Okçal to weigh in on the matter. Let's start with the inflation numbers, though. The Turkish Statistical Institute just released its numbers for the month of May. This morning, TSI places monthly CPI at 2.98%, landing annual consumer price inflation at 73.5%. Of course, that is only if the government agency is to be believed. Independent inflation research group ENAC places annual inflation at 160.7%, up 5.5% from last month's numbers, making Turkey one of the worst sufferers of inflation in the world, right there with Venezuela, South Sudan, and even worse than Zimbabwe and Syria. Well, let's move on to our first story tonight. Conda Research and Consultancy, considered a reputable polling agency in Turkey, is reporting significant ground losses for AKP. AKP, President Erdoğan's party, and the most significant majority in parliament for the first time in 15 years, is reporting below 30% in popularity. AKP has been in power for over 20 years now, first winning a sweeping victory in 2002 general elections, a mere year after it was founded. Well, after 20 years of AKP rule, as Turkey deals with major social and economic problems, AKP has been losing serious ground. AKP, along with its coalition partner MHP, currently holds 55% of parliament and, of course, the presidency, granting it a supermajority. But that may not turn out the same way next year. Last year, in July, Conda, the same company, did the same poll, and AKP was then polling at 36%, dropping to 32% in September, and it is now only polling at 29% this month. And those votes seem to be going to the opposition coalition, namely the E Party, CHP's chief ally. So let's take a look at those numbers and see where AKP is today.
According to the polls by Conda Research, AKP's vote share is reporting below 30%, making it the lowest for the majority party in 15 years. Respondents were asked, if there was an MP election this Sunday, which party would you vote for? Here are the results. 29% for AKP, 25% for CHP, 22% for IA Party, 12% for HDP, 7.5% for MHP, and 5% for other. CHP and AKP are now closer than ever, whereas the IA Party is up over 20% for the first time.
And proceeding with domestic politics, political trials in Turkey continue. Last Tuesday, CHP's Istanbul provincial chair, Canan Kaftancıoğlu, reported to the Silivri Correctional Facility. Silivri, of course, being known as where political prisoners go. But really, it's nothing more than technicality. See, despite being convicted to 4 years, 11 months due to the rather lenient and esoteric nature of the Turkish correctional system, Kaftancıoğlu only had to show up, sign some paperwork, and was then immediately released after and is currently out on parole. To remind our viewers, Kaftancıoğlu's conviction was due to terrorist propaganda, insulting the president, insulting a public official, and a few more insult charges, but suffice to say, it was regarding speech. But Kaftancıoğlu is not the only one being prosecuted for speech this week. Istanbul's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, also had to report to court for an insult case. The High Election Council is suing İmamoğlu for calling them fools. After İmamoğlu filed a complaint with the EU Parliament for election fraud, the Minister of Interior called İmamoğlu a fool. But İmamoğlu said, I am not a fool, the Election Council is a fool. And in Turkey, that's enough to land you in hot water. Meanwhile, President Erdoğan and CHP's chair, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, openly spar back and forth for the first time, leading many to speculate, is Kılıçdaroğlu going to be Erdoğan's competition in the upcoming election? Because they really haven't acknowledged each other to this degree before. Erdoğan asked Kılıçdaroğlu 10 accusatory questions, and Kılıçdaroğlu answers those questions and asks 10 accusatory questions back. But the one that is of import is Erdoğan calling Kılıçdaroğlu out and telling him to announce his candidacy already. Kılıçdaroğlu does no such thing, of course, but it leads to even more speculation if Kılıçdaroğlu will actually be opposition's candidate. Let's go to the details.
It has been a week of trials and tribulations in Turkish politics. First, CHP's Istanbul Provincial Chair Canan Kaftancıoğlu reported to Turkey's infamous Silivri Correctional Facility on Tuesday after being convicted of supporting terrorism and insulting the president. A couple of tweets from years ago were the basis for this conviction. Kaftancıoğlu was released immediately. Kaftancıoğlu played a critical role in taking Istanbul from more than 20 years of AKP rule.
Ancak bugün Silivri ve tüm İstanbul
Then, CHP's Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu reported to the criminal court for his ongoing trial, now postponed to September. İmamoğlu is also being tried for perceived insults, this time towards the High Election Council. After the trial, İmamoğlu directed his criticism at the government and said, "We are going to make them cry in the next elections." İmamoğlu has emerged in recent times as a direct challenger to President Erdoğan's rule. Meanwhile, speculation ran wild this week as President Erdoğan and main opposition party CHP chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu had an indirect back and forth. President Erdoğan asked 10 accusatory questions toward Kılıçdaroğlu at his party's group meeting this week, most notably, if he was brave enough to announce his candidacy already. Kılıçdaroğlu responded in kind and answered all of the questions and responded with more accusatory ones still, responding to the candidacy question with, "Are you willing to call an early election? We will announce our candidate on the same day."
And it was the 9th year anniversary of the infamous Gezi protests this week. Gezi protests, of course, were the massive public upheaval in 2013 that was sparked from something seemingly so innocuous. In 2013, the AKP government was planning on demolishing the Gezi Park, a large park in the heart of Istanbul, and one of the most secular districts, and turning it into an Ottoman-style complex. Many from the opposition took this to mean an infringement on their bastion of freedom they have in the Beyoğlu district. The protests started small and grew to encompass millions, making headlines around the world, chiefly due to the heavy-handedness of the government in dispersing the crowds and the protests persisting for 84 days. Many saw the protest as the first legitimate challenge to Erdoğan's authority. And rightfully so. Even after 9 years, Erdoğan still looks upon the protests with disdain, enough to produce some choice words for the protesters that I am not entirely certain that we can say on air. Furthermore, President Erdoğan also has a culprit for Turkey's grim economic outlook. While Turkey deals with embattled currency, shrinking foreign reserves, and one of the highest inflation percentages in the world, President Erdoğan allocates the blame to the Gezi protests. Here are the details.
This week, protesters took to the streets for the 9th anniversary of the Gezi protests. Blocked by riot police, the protesters were contained and pepper sprayed before they could make it to the main street, the heart of the infamous 2013 Gezi protests. In response, President Erdoğan, who to this day has seen the protests as the first major challenge to his authority, called the Gezi protesters sluts. President Erdoğan made headlines this week when responding to the protesters saying, "Who are these people? They are rotten, they are sluts." History keeps tabs on who was behind the Gezi incident, where public places, police cars, businesses, and streets were vandalized. These people will do the public no good. They are sided with the lovers of terrorism. He went on to blame the serious economic problems plaguing Turkey on the 9-year-old Gezi protests as well.
And concert bans in Turkey continues as the government seems to have taken an even more socially conservative stance as of late. Last month saw numerous concerts and shows canceled with little to no reason. Well, believable reason anyhow. Last month, we did a story on Kurdish singer Aynur Doğan's show being canceled by the municipality where it was scheduled. The reasons given were vague and accused the organizer of not filing the proper paperwork, which organizer responded by tweeting out the receipts for the dues paid for the said paperwork. And of course, the Korean K-pop band Mirai was also canceled, which CHP's chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu came to the defense of, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. Well, dozens of very famous artists' shows were also canceled last month, and almxO is just the latest one in the line. However, Mosso's case is a little bit different because after being ousted by the AKP Isparta province's local government, the Minister of Culture and Tourism assured the public that she would be in the lineup in the festival held by the ministry in Istanbul. So, is that an inter-party conflict on the local level and the national level? We can only speculate. Regardless, however, Melek Mosso did have her show this week, and it was a pretty good one. Let's go to the details.
As the month of May in Turkey saw numerous bans on concerts and events, it once again sparked backlash in Turkey. The bans are seen by many as conservative government oppression and infringement on freedoms. Just in May, the shows for artists Erdoğan, almxO, Niyazi Kuyuncu, Metin-Kemal Mehmet, and Burhan Şeşen were cancelled for various reasons by the governorships or municipalities.
Biz taş gibi yürüyoruz, yanımızda durun yetersiz.
Latest in the long line of cancellations was artist Melek Mosso, whose concert in Isparta was cancelled by the municipality. Amidst the backlash, Mosso was invited to a concert organized by the Ministry of Culture in Istanbul. Thousands of people attended the event, giving a standing ovation to Mosso, who on stage was defiant once again.
And in Turkey on the world stage, Turkey and Greece are at it again. Of course, whenever you hear Greece and Turkey used in the same sentence, it's usually not good news. The two countries have been famously disputing over countless issues since their foundations, but this time, the rhetoric is harsher than ever, at least on the Turkish side. Mere weeks after Greek PM Mitsotakis visited President Erdoğan in Istanbul to discuss matters of cooperation, this week President Erdoğan is saying that Mitsotakis is dead to him. This came after Mitsotakis spoke in the U.S. Congress and urged lawmakers to block the potential sale of F-16s to Turkey. Given the age-old dispute over the Aegean Islands and the routine violation of airspaces done by both nations, fighter aircraft are a big deal to these countries, even leading to mock and real dogfights and shooting down of aircraft in the past. So it is clear that President Erdoğan feels slighted. But is the crisis for real? Because let's be honest, Turkey and Greece are usually either coming out of a diplomatic crisis or they're going into a diplomatic crisis. Well, former Ambassador Hakan Okçal will be with us in just a little bit to shed light on the matter, but let's get the details first.
AKP Chairman and President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan had harsh words for the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis after the cabinet meeting on the 23rd of May. Mitsotakis does not exist for me anymore, he said during the AKP group meeting and warned, "Don't try to dance with Turkey, you will fail." The new status between the states is a far cry from earlier this year. On the 13th of March, the two leaders, Mitsotakis and Erdoğan, had lunch at the Vadeten Mansion in Istanbul, whereafter both parties had reached a consensus for increased cooperation between the nations. A mere 40 days later, diplomacy between the two nations is on the brink of failing. The tension started on the 9th of May when both Greece and Turkey, NATO allies, blamed each other for the invasion of airspace, which led Turkey to withdrawal from the NATO Tigers Meet 2020 hosted by Greece. On May 17th, after his meeting with President Biden, Prime Minister Mitsotakis addressed Congress, and while he did not mention Turkey by name, urged to block the sale of F-16s. This is coming at the heels of Greece's potential entry into the F-35 program and its acquisition of 18 French Rafale fighters, threatening to achieve air superiority over the Aegean. Athens-based journalist Stelios Berberakis commented on the Turco-Greek relations. "In my 35 years of journalism, have I never heard such harsh words. Especially the Turkish side and politicians are to blame for the escalation," he added. "The manner in which the Turkish side speaks does not reflect well here at all. People are worried. My neighbors are knocking on my door every day, asking me, is a war breaking out?" The tension between the two NATO allies appears to be drawing the attention of other members. Yesterday, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called on Turkey to exercise caution and restraint against the Greek side. The spokesperson for the Chancellery stated, "The Chancellor thinks, in regards to the current development, that NATO allies should stand together and stop provocations among themselves. Invading Greek airspace and flying over Greek islands is not okay. It seems counterproductive and against the spirit of the alliance."
And if you'd like to do a deep dive on the latest crisis, we've got a full article available on our website. Just follow the link in the description box below. But joining me for analysis now, former Ambassador Hakan Okçal. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Our absolute pleasure, sir. Mr. Ambassador, now for the folks at home who might not necessarily be familiar with the age-old disputes between Turkey and Greece and the escalations, before we get to the more recent crisis, do you think you could give us a brief history for the relations between Greece and Turkey and why they constantly can't seem to be getting along? Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, both countries have fought independence wars against each other. The creation of modern Greece was the result of an independence war against of the time of the Ottomans. In the time of the Ottomans, it's been actually 200 years with the Greek revolt against Turkey, and Greece has always expanded its territories, and we have the present-day Greek borders, which is disputed by Turkey because of the maritime borders. Actually, the Greek borders that have been claimed by the modern Greek state is not easily contested, is not accepted by Turkey because of the extension of the territorial waters. That's for one. But the whole relations between Turkey and Greece is also problematic in the sense that Greece, in one or another, in its deep down culture, sees Turkish Western territories, especially the Aegean regions of Turkey and Thrace and Istanbul, as lost homelands, ancestral homelands of the ancient Greek culture. This is very deeply entrenched in the Greek philosophy, unfortunately. And I'm saying this because as a Turkish diplomat, I served in Greece for 3 years, and I personally witnessed this by first-hand experience. But however, coming to the Turkish side, of course, Turkey also fought an independence war against Greece and its present-day borders, which we have land borders on Thrace, the Turkish Thrace, and also sea borders on the western part of Turkey in the Aegean Sea, is determined by the Turkish independence war. When Turkey was achieving its independence, actually, some of the islands that are now under Greek sovereignty were not, ruled by Greece. They were actually islands occupied by Italy. And Italy, after the Second World War, have delivered the Dodecanese Islands. These are the 12 islands, the large 12 islands. Actually, the Dodecanese are much more larger in numbers. And these were delivered to Greece due to its participation and its sacrifices during the Second World War. Turkey has accepted Greek, of course, sovereignty over the islands, but under certain conditions. One of them was, of course, the demilitarized status of the islands. The other one was the territory width of the territorial waters. In the beginning years, it was only 3 miles, according to the international law of the time. Then it was widened to 6 miles territorial waters, which was also accepted. But after that, Turkey has never accepted any extension of the Greek territorial waters, which is allowed by the United Nations Convention of the Sea of the Law to 12 miles for every country. But when it comes to 12 miles, of course, there is a problem, which is the Turkish passage to natural efforts by the Greek waters. So Turkey disputes and has always informed Greece that Turkey will not accept a further extension over the 6-mile limit of the Greek territorial waters. And there is a new problem since the last 4 decades, which is the continental shelf issue. Continental shelf is actually a matter of economy and the rich and the natural wealth of a country that it can enjoy on the bed of the sea. So it is claimed by each side that the agency is a very rich sea, but the continental shelf needs to be delineated. And Turkey has offered Greece to negotiate all the issues pertaining to the agency together and come up with a solution. This is not an acceptable offer by Turkey, which Greece can accept. So it only accept that there is only an issue of territorial waters and the others do not exist. For instance, the airspace is also an issue that has been on the table for many years. First of all, although Turkey accepts 6 miles of Greek territorial waters and Greece has not extended officially its territorial waters, it has extended its airspace to 10 miles. So that there's an absurd situation because 6 miles doesn't correspond to the 10 miles of airspace. On top of that, there is another issue, which is the flight information region, the FIR zone over the agency, which is actually a technical service, a technical jurisdiction of a country, but which is utilized by Greece as a sovereign right, and it disputes any flight over the international airspace by Turkish military aircraft. So every year we have the issue of flight problems between Turkey and Greece. There are airplanes belonging to each air force, which fly by each other in close proximity. We call them the dogfighting of airplanes, and this is also an issue. And there are other issues which I can maybe go on as well. Explain, for instance, the matter of minorities. Greece has a minority in Turkey, in Istanbul, which is dwindling, unfortunately. And Turkey has a Turkish Muslim minority in Western Thrace. And the rights of these both communities are matters that Greece and Turkey have been disputing and discussing over the years. Another issue is Cyprus, although Turkey and Greece have declared on and off that Cyprus is a problem that merits another context and another discussion, and this is not on the agenda of the bilateral issues, but still Cyprus casts a long shadow on Turkish-Greek relations. Since many years, I mean, especially after the Second World War, these issues came up to the fore, and I would say that the normal situation between Turkey and Greece is that both countries have disputes to tackle with, have disputes to iron out and come up with solutions. They are engaged, they have been and are engaging in negotiations with each other, but still these issues are not so easy issues, and I wouldn't say that they are intractable. There could be solutions, but this is also a part of a larger culture, if you like. When you look from the Greek side, you have a huge Turkey menacing and threatening Greece, and the independence and sovereignty of Greece is in question, according to the Greek mind, official mind, and also the popular mind. And from Turkey, there is a Greece, which is spoiled child of Europe and West, if you like, America and the European Union, creating a lot of problems for Turkey and utilizing its membership of European Union as a trump card against Turkey, and hampering Turkish advances towards the West, and also playing tricks on his back, which Erdoğan, coming up to the latest crisis, which Erdoğan has summarized yesterday as not an honest way to approach Turkey when it comes to the Prime Minister of Greece, Mr. Mitsotakis. He said he was going to erase him from his book. He was going to, not going to recognize him anymore, not going to speak to him, not going to communicate with him, because according to his explanation, there was an agreement between Mr. Mitsotakis, the Prime Minister of Greece, and Erdoğan that both countries' bilateral issues should be dealt within the bilateral context, right, not going to a third party.
Mr. Ambassador.
Mr. Mitsotakis, yes, please.
Sorry, Mr. Ambassador, I'm sorry to cut in, but while we're on the subject, I'd like to expand on the most recent crisis. Now, mere weeks ago, right, it was looking like Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis and President Erdoğan were turning a new leaf. Prime Minister visited President Erdoğan in Istanbul, and the mood was rather cordial. But this week, President Erdoğan basically said something to the effect of Mitsotakis is dead to me, as you said, and has instructed his subordinates to sever all communications with him. Now, that is a rather sharp turn of events. Now, why do you think Turkey has all of a sudden switched rhetoric super sharply against Greece? And do you think this has the capacity to escalate?
Well, this is interesting because, after all, one would normally expect that Turkey would try to mend fences with Greece as well, because, after all, since the last 2 years, Turkey was trying to collaborate with all the adversaries and try to have a better communication between all the countries that it had disputes with, such as Egypt, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Greece as well. And when it comes to, with Greece, actually about 2 years ago, the high-level talks, the exploratory talks, it started after a long period of 5 years, and this was heralded as a good intention on both sides. So, Turkey, there was a lot of cloud over Turkish intentions lately. And the Biden administration was very critical, as you know, before coming to rule the United States. Now, one would expect that although there could be hiccups here and there, one would rather try to continue with on the road that has been it has embarked about 2 years ago in speaking to each other and trying to create common ground for cooperation. But we know that Erdoğan is a political, highly sophisticated political person. He has been at the helm of Turkey for the last 20 years. He has been one of the most, I would say, cunning and
Sorry, Mr. Ambassador, it looks like we lost you. And it looks like we've lost Ambassador Hakan Okçal. We'd like to thank you for the time, if he's able to hear us. And Ambassador Okçal, thank you.
Such a sharp language against the Mitsotakis. And my explanation, actually, this is not only my explanation personally, but the explanation of many experts is that he needs an adversary. He needs an adversary because things are not going in the right direction in the economy, and also the public polls, suggest that he is losing ground since the last year. He is losing his support in the public, so he needs to deflect attention from the economy to another issue, which could be either Syria or Greece. These are interesting areas because he sees the opportunity of creating a crisis and garnering support, which he has lost due to the worsening of the economic situation in Turkey. This is my simple explanation. But we must see whether he can continue with that, because if it were only Greece and Turkey disputing with each other, that could be manageable. That could be something that Erdoğan could play with. But he is, he's an actor in an international, in a difficult international area. We have the Ukraine crisis. We have perhaps we are at the threshold of a new international architecture, security architecture, as well as the camps of the democracy and anti-democratic countries standing up against each other. So he must choose his camp, actually, and that's something, of course, which is not only Erdoğan, but the Turkish public and his adversaries in the Turkish internal politics must address. So he has still a support from 30 to 40%, according to various public polls. But whether he can have create an attention on international affairs, although that could be a crisis in a cup of water. That's another thing. But he shouldn't be losing the support of the West, especially in this very critical juncture in the world. This is something that Erdoğan is not should not be a free agent to act upon. So here, of course, comes into the scene the other political adversaries and his opponents, whether they can pass the right messages to the public and to the voters who are still some of them undecided. Although they are not very happy with what Erdoğan is doing with his interesting economic ideology and his, corruption and etc. So the message seems to be not getting through. And here we must admit that Erdoğan is a successful political player of his sort. This is what I can say in a nutshell, if you like.
I see. Mr. Ambassador Hakan Okçal, so you would liken it to President Erdoğan actually starts this crisis in a desperate attempt to be able to garner votes in domestic politics. Is that correct? Would that be an accurate summation?
Well, this is my reading of the situation. But the question that you have posed me a while ago, whether the crisis could escalate into a real confrontation and deteriorate into some hot crisis, I wouldn't suggest that because Erdoğan is a politician known for his practicalities. So he would go as far as conditions would allow him to garner votes and create a support in the public for him.
Mr. Ambassador, are you able to hear me? And it looks like we lost connection with Mr. Ambassador Hakan Okçal back there, but just as well, because we are running out of time, we'd like to thank Hakan Okçal very much for his analysis and being able to join us tonight. And that's it for our show for tonight, folks. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Maybe support us on Patreon if you feel like it. Any help is greatly appreciated. And with that, that's it for us in This Week in Turkey. I have been Murat, Türsan, and thank you for joining us.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope, 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.